Hey, friend, welcome to another episode of the podcast. And this is my first time introducing it as the Sunday Sitdown. So this is a great chance for us to continue the conversation. Our hope is that you continue the conversation beyond Sunday. So as Justin has said, it's not Sunday, but we're sitting down. And we hope that you're having a good week and did get a little bit of a chance to rest and enjoyed worship together in community, all of it. But let me just restate something that we've been saying from the very beginning of this podcast, which is that our conversation, while we understand like on occasion we go deeper into pieces of the text that we didn't get to include in the sermon, there is information certainly that we want to share in this conversation with you around the passage of this past Sunday, always the previous Sunday that was preached on. Our hope is that we also give you some questions that you yourself can wrestle with, and that's why some of our questions are more application or even like personal kind of by nature. So we really want you to find yourself into these conversations, not just passively listening, but by taking it and using this to have some further conversation yourself. So we hope that it does encourage you and that it does challenge you to have your own conversations. But we're jumping into a conversation around Luke 9, verses 37 to like about 44, which is this great story, Jesus and his disciples descending the mountain, and Jesus and the disciples immediately being confronted by a man whose son is possessed by a demon. He's begging Jesus to heal his son. The disciples can't do it. There's this great moment of healing and also teaching. Jesus rebukes. He says some harsh things about those present. So like a lot to work through for sure in a short amount of time. But we have a couple questions that we really hope, like I said, encourage you to go a little bit deeper in your own faith and with your own small communities.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that struck me as we went into this week and did some sermon prep, as we often do, is that like this was so real time. This was our Sunday after Labor Day, which is often like everyone's back from summer and all that kind of stuff. And so it felt like, man, this is like a bit of a hard passage. Like everyone's coming back. Yeah. But in some ways it was actually just right. Yeah. Like, cause you're describing, the mountaintop experience of the transfiguration and then the coming down from the mountain into reality, into real life, which is exactly what people are doing. You know, if people have been away, if people have been on vacation, if people have been just in different rhythms and routines of life, they are now likely settling into getting their kids to school and making lunches. And I'm in that routine. And so are you. Yeah.
Trying to settle into it, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that I want people hearing, and so I think it's worth re-saying today, is that like we tend to, and I positioned the whole descent down the mountain as that sort of crash down the mountain, that immediately the pressure of Jesus's vocation, who he is, what he has been called to do, his mission, is like immediately put back on his shoulders. Like it's not absent up the mountain, but you really get like so God the Father, this voice from heaven, he's the primary actor in that instance. Like Jesus isn't being demanded of by people around him. So I think that's what I mean by, like the mantle or the pressure of it is just immediately back on his shoulders when he comes down the mountain. So framed it that way, the disciples come down the mountain and immediately the pressure of being a disciple is back on them as well. So they're kind of in the clouds with Jesus and Moses and Elijah, God the Father, voice from heaven. And again, they're Peter, bless him, he tries to act and misses the boat a little bit, but they're by and large they're witnessing this happen, and they're getting to experience it, they're getting to see it. But not a lot is being demanded of them other than their presence, like they're there. And then they come down the mountain and, demands of being a disciple. Dad's like, hey, ask the disciples, and they couldn't do it. So what's that about? But at the end of the sermon, what I really tried to turn us toward is that it's not for Jesus and for the kingdom. It's not a crash down the mountain, as in this like failure or trial or suffering or like just low sort of emotional, depressed down kind of moment. It's a very intentional bringing of the presence of bringing of the presence of God down the mountain, bringing of the kingdom down the mountain, to continue doing the kingdom thing. So for Jesus, it's this like powerful move, not in any type of like coercive way, but in this like, revealed fully still more of it, right? And I think that's the thing that I would say, like, to myself and to us. It can, like, our return can feel kind of like this crash. The challenge is to allow Jesus to do what he did there in our own lives.
And just like the everyday mundane.
Which is to take it,
exactly,
take the kingdom into the everyday mundane stuff.
Yeah.
And really, like, we talk, even that word mundane, like we talk about what is holy and what is mundane. We talk about what is sacred and what is secular. Yeah. But that distinction doesn't exist for Jesus. We didn't talk about this part like in preparation for the podcast, but like that distinction doesn't exist inside of Jesus's worldview. Everything is being redeemed by the kingdom. Yeah. And everything is being redeemed by Jesus' death and resurrection. And so, like for Jesus, it's not, hey, I've got office hours and, my specific like healing of demons are Thursdays at like 9 to 11, right? Like it's not that type of, there's no distinction. So the king, we don't talk enough about how we talk about Jesus bringing the kingdom. We don't actually probably talk enough about Jesus being the kingdom. Yeah. So the kingdom coming isn't because Jesus is like lobbing little kingdom grenades everywhere as he goes, or like I picture those like seed bombs, like those rogue gardeners. Yep. This is what's happened. I didn't know a thing about gardening until I met my wife. And now I'm just like, I've got all these random pieces of knowledge of very bizarre rogue like militia gardeners who run around the city dropping little like seed bombs into overly sodded grass, like monocropped, like beautifully looked. So like
the rogue gardeners.
They're rogue gardeners. There are people who go around with like little like seed bombs and like drop them places and just to grow flowers, like just to grow native flowers.
That's like beautiful in its own little like subversive way. Like,
it's great.
I gotta plant some flowers.
So on the one hand, I go, hey, that's a great image. Jesus isn't just like lobbing these kingdom grenades. His presence is the kingdom come, and he like there's no distinction between Jesus and kingdom. So we like to we like to divide out, I think, our life, and we talk about what is sacred and what is secular. We talk about what is faith. I think in some ways we struggle with this like intense privatization of faith that's happened in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Certainly since like the first Prime Minister Trudeau. Who really had this strong line of like, and I'm going to misquote him, but he said that the state has no business in the bedroom of the nation, right? And because there's this intense privatization at that point of like human sexuality, but we've done this back off like real privatization of faith, and so then we get to compartmentalize and go, my church life, my faith life is over here. And that's sacred, wonderful, love it. Very different from my work life over here. I have to operate in this culture, so I got to do the things of the culture in order just to succeed. And so you just kind of sacrifice this, fully integrated life for this completely disintegrated, compartmentalized life.
And you see that in like lots of parts of our world. I mean, I have this very distinct memory from many years ago in high school. We were just like at a group of kids and we were talking about life and something about religion came up and someone said to this one girl, she said, oh, well, what religion are you? And she said, she just had this like aghast look on her face. She was like, that is a deeply personal question.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like, because I'm like, growing up in the church, it was always like, yeah, like we should just like wear our faith on our sleeve. Like that's just a part of life, right?
Yeah.
But for many, it is not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that what I hope for our people and like what I long for our church, even just for myself, like for my own family, is to consider and think of all of life as sacred in the truest sense of that word, like all of it created by God, designed, ordered by God, all of it like infused with God's Spirit. God is present in all of it, desires to be present through all of it. And that changes the way you approach like making sandwiches for your kid, like making lunch for your kid, right? I was once challenged by a pastor friend who I was asking him some questions on the dynamics of being a pastor and having a family. He had 3 teenage daughters at the time. I had 2, now like 3 young daughters. And his line was, so I was asking him about, I can't remember the question, but, loving God, loving your family, loving the church. And he's like, no, stop, Grant. You don't get it. He's like, the way I love my family is the way I love Jesus. Like the way I love my daughters is the way I love Jesus. The way I love my spouse he's like, the way I love my wife is the way I love Jesus. And so I wanted to like separate them out to understand, like, tell me, like, the young pastor, I'm like, tell me how to do this well. Like, how can I love Jesus? How can I love my family? How can I love my church? And he's like,
wrong question.
Wrong question.
Yeah.
And I remember going, oh, yeah. All right. Like, but it stuck with me. I don't remember anything else of that conversation. It was like an hour and a half conversation. I don't remember anything else except for that very specific, like, okay, we got to think about reintegrating all of this in a little bit better of a way. So what I long for our church is that same kind of, hey, Jesus descends the mountain and brings the kingdom. And so we come off these moments into real life, whatever that means. And I go, man, Jesus is no less present there than he is at church or in worship, like, concert, at camp, retreat, like wherever you are. You go, okay, it's going to feel different. It takes discipline, but we got to take the presence of God with us into those, quote, sort of mundane places, because they're not.
Yes. And I also like think that, it just means we need to actually like actively be looking for God in those spaces. Sometimes it's easy to presume, when I'm walking my kid to school, that's just walking my kid to school. Yeah. But if we are looking for God at work in those moments, because we do get, my daughter and I often, we walk to school and we, get to have little chats. Yeah. And there's something beautiful and holy about that, and sometimes they're not deep at all. Sometimes they go weirdly deep in our 5-minute walk.
Yeah. Which is the beauty of like classic Christian discipleship, right? Which is just that type of real lived out life experience where you go like, hey, we're going to get groceries because we need food to put on the table. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that. I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Right? Like it's a privilege to be able to take someone along. I mean, it's an extraordinary privilege to be able to take your kid along. Just say that. It's a privilege to take somebody along with you for those everyday kind of moments and use them as ways to talk about Jesus. Do I do it well all the time? Absolutely not. Yep. So let's just say that too. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm more frustrated by, getting like T-boned by a cart or something, or I'm not paying attention and I T-bone somebody else with a cart. Like
it's a hazard. Especially at Costco or something like that.
Well, I wasn't going to name, any places specifically, but
these carts are just too big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Justin, how else am I going to fit my toilet paper and all the other things?
I know. All right. So that was a related and great way to jump into things. But a couple thoughts. The first one, looking at this language that you see in here. So when Jesus at the end of the passage, he brings people back. He brings the disciples, particularly, back to what he told them earlier in the chapter for the first time. I'm gonna die.
Yep.
You know, and he says, "Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men." And they did not understand what he meant, even though he just told them. I guess maybe slightly more cryptically than he did previously. But like, maybe it's hindsight for me. But like, how they should have been connecting some dots. But that's not the point. The point is that Jesus is. I think there's a more gentle rebuke in here of saying like you've kind of forgotten. Like you've kind of forgotten. Let me help you remember.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about those two words of remembering and forgetting.
Yeah.
And particularly like what are the ways in which we can forget God? And I think more importantly, what I think is better to focus on is what are the ways in which we remember God? And we touched on that just a moment ago in terms of our everyday life, bringing God into everything. But I think there's some more specific ways in which I think we can remember God, and I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah. I love this. I think it's a couple things from Sunday, from the message. We talked about how this is not Jesus just like emotionally angry with the disciples. Like, I can't believe you guys have been here. Like, how many years have we been at this? And you guys still can't get this through your head. So it's not that on the one hand, and it is actually almost like, hey guys, get this through your heads.
Yeah.
He is really trying to make sure they're hearing this. The language in Hebrew, it's the term for it, like it's a I think I said slang, but it's like it's a Hebraism, like it's a very specific phrase that is very common.
Is it the listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you?
Yeah, which is functionally saying, don't forget, right? Remember this. Please don't forget this. It's like when my wife double checks, I'm about to leave the house, like, hey, get anything else. Please get this one thing.
Yeah.
It's like, send me a text message just so that I remember it, right? That's what, like, it's Jesus is saying, remember.
I did have a takeout. She's like, you'll remember my takeout order. No, I won't. So please text me.
Yeah.
So that I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely. This really is that kind of, it is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the disciples they're supposed to be paying attention. I would presume they're paying attention. Jesus is quoting from Deuteronomy. He's quoting from Isaiah, very, very specifically. And there's a lot of passages in the Old Testament that point us to this same sort of cycle of, to use your words, forgetting and remembering, because that's the language of Israel and of their relationship to God. And we've talked about this. Obviously, like, we're talking about biblical Israel as language for the people who God chose throughout the Old Testament. And they live out this cycle of forgetting and remembering and forgetting and remembering. And it's probably most seen, like I was thinking about this, it's probably most apparent in Judges. So Judges, the very last line of the book of Judges.
It's like haunting.
It is, I think it's the most terrifying line. I say that about a couple, but I think it's one of the most terrifying lines in all of Scripture. So in Judges 21, it's 21:25. It says, "In those days Israel had no king." So remember, God was meant to be king. They had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. Other translations render that everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Yeah. And it's translated that way because actually, literally, the word is judged. Everyone did as they judged, as they judged right. And I go, like, that's terrifying. And it kind of feels like we live life in that radically individual, like moral relativism, where you get to decide what is right for you, and nobody can tell you that it is wrong. And I go, right on. We've got a template for that. And it's one of the most, like, use your language, it's one of the most haunting verses in Scripture. And it's one of the most terrifying things. So everyone in those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Everyone did as they judged. But if you look back at, like, throughout the book of Judges, and I marked 3 for us, because you see it immediately here. And let me just find the words. So in 7, it's the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. So what we see Israel live into is this cycle of essentially forgetting God, and very specifically forgetting what God had done immediately for them, like forgetting God's deliverance, forgetting how God had delivered them from slavery in Egypt, forgetting how God had led them and guided them and provided for them, forgetting how when they were hungry, provided food, forgetting when they needed, water, he provided. Like, there's just this, it's not just this general sort of, they were absent-minded and didn't really think of God. It's very specific. They forgot the ways in which God provided for them. And in doing that, what they do is the second move of the pattern is they begin to look at the nations around them. And they go, well, that nation has this God, and that nation has their gods.
And they're doing pretty well.
And they're doing great.
Yeah.
That nation has a king. We see it again, right? Israel demands a king. And God's like, I don't think it's going to go the way that you want it to go. They're like, no, we really want a king. Everybody else has a king.
Like,
Why can't we have a king? You already have a king. Well, not a real king. They're like, we want a real king. And it's almost like this replaying of, so you get Moses going up the mountain, and they're like, oh, he's dead. Plus, he's talking about a God that we can't really see. All these other nations have gods that they can see. Let's build something that we can see with our own eyes, because that feels closer. And, so you get this cycle, forgetting God's provision, his deliverance, the very real things that he had done, and then turning and looking and seeing these other nations, the gods that they worshipped, the kings that they served, the ways in which they were successful in Israel's eyes, and they said, we want some of that. And so they begin worshiping those gods, they begin serving those kings, they begin demanding for their own kings, and what we see is this pattern of choosing then to live away from God, and God eventually doing what God does, which is ameliorate the situation, brings them back. Usually it's through trouble and hardship. And God calls them, he kind of beckons them, hey, remember what I have done for you. Which is why one of the most common phrases throughout Israel's life is remember, right? Many of the Psalms talk about remember what God did. In the time of, right? Yeah. Remember how he led us out of Egypt. Remember how he led us across dry land. Remember how he led us through the wilderness. Remember how he provided for us. Because it's very distinctly when they lose sight of that very specific provision that they start going, uh-oh, maybe it won't happen again. Maybe we got to start gathering for ourselves. Maybe we need to start stocking, storing up. Maybe we need to start looking at other gods who can provide different things. They got a lot of, something. Maybe we got to start doing our own thing.
So it feels like I think there's a couple little themes to extract there that I think are also our own story personally and as a people. Is you get there is an element of comfort. And when you get into, you've been provided for, everything is good, everything is comfortable, it becomes much easier to not have God at the fore. And so when God is not at the forefront of your mind, it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
and then secondly, there is a discontentment as you look around you. You know, in the case of Israel, looking at the other nations, seeing what they had and what they lacked, or what the other nations had and what they lacked. Naturally, for us, I think that's true, right? And that it is easy to look around and to forget about God because we are focused on our lack. So those are, I mean, when we talk about what are the ways which we forget God, I think that's.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm spoiling a line for this coming sermon, but like, I think one of the main things that kills our faithfulness, spirituality, our relationship with Jesus today is comparison. Right? And I don't think we fully understand how often we do that. So we're moving into this story where the disciples are like, Jesus, we don't want to talk about your death. And, there is that curious line where it's withheld from them, right? Understanding of it is withheld from them. So we've got that line to wrestle out. But then they get into this argument about who's the greatest.
Which is like on the surface level so stupid.
Yeah, but it's like, how can we not, reckon with what you've just said, Jesus? Let's do the most human thing we can do. We'll compare ourselves and see who's better. And I really do think like comparison kills intimacy, man. Like comparison kills intimacy. You know this for a relationship. Like comparison kills intimacy with spouses. And comparison kills intimacy with Jesus. So you comparing your life, your spirituality, your faith, your prayer, your any of it, I just think it's a road for killing your intimacy with Jesus. Because you're going to go, it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like this. It doesn't feel like that. I don't get this. I'm not like, and certainly this is true for pastors. Their church is bigger than our church, so like they must be.
What are we doing wrong?
What am I?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I go, no, absolutely. It's just this, a horrible cycle that we can get into. So comparison for sure. Yeah,
and I think you could even compare, like you could bring that even to material need and possessions as well, right? Like it's easy to. My wife and I have been going for lots of walks around our neighborhood lately, and it's real easy to start looking and being like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Right?
Cars in the driveway, houses.
Yeah. And that's, like we try to keep them as just fleeting noticing rather than like a truly like deep-rooted, sense of discontentment, because we're very fortunate and blessed in our home, and we but it is so easy to let that seep in.
Yeah. And then become, like you said, become discontent. Yeah. God must be providing for them more than me. Like we do, we fall into those I think thoughts naturally.
So those are some easy ways in which we can forget God and what God is doing and where God is active and moving. But more to the positive end of things, what are the things we can do to remember, to like what are the practices that we can do to say like, hey, this is how we remember. And before I'm just gonna partially answer the question before you even start talking.
I love that.
But I loved the way on Sunday the remembrance was directly connected to communion. Right.
Yeah.
So like just riffing off that a little bit of like, we are called to remember. Jesus ends his passage with saying, remember, this is what's going to happen. This is what's about to take place. I am going to die, and then we jump into communion and it's obviously a very tangible reminder of God and his grace. And
Yeah, and I think I think you pointed that out in our teaching prep meeting. Hey, this is awesome because you're going to get to go straight from this into communion. You go, well, that's the conclusion then. Like, fantastic, right? Like it was just that. It was a great transition to be able to pull off and go immediately into communion. Say, hey, like in the core of our being, like our bodies get to experience this remembering.
Yeah. Which is why it's so important to like, I mean, I think it's why like the scriptures say like, don't neglect this practice.
Yeah.
Because it is that regular, and some churches have different rhythms. Some it's monthly or quarterly or weekly. But whatever that rhythm looks like for us, it's monthly. That rhythm is so critical because it draws us back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go the opposite way. That is like, well, I don't know if it's the opposite, but very not sacramental. So you go immediately to like the sacrament of all sacraments, right? Like communion, Eucharist, like all in, which I love because it is. I think to take that though and say we practice communion, like you've said, once a month for very specific reason, and that is we think that probably every week would be a bit much, but quarterly is not enough. It's not. At what point is something a habit? At what point is something a ritual? At what point is something beneficially adding the discipline, the routine of we're going to do this once a month? Summer we're a little bit more flexible, I get, but September through to June, you're going to get communion once a month, and it's going to be on the first Sunday of the month, barring any major something.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like Christmas Day. We maybe wouldn't, I don't know. Maybe we would.
Yeah.
But it's that that level of discipline, I think, is required for us to say together, let's remember. Let's remember. And it is frequently enough that it serves that function of constantly calling us back to the presence of Jesus, like constantly calling us back to the table is a constant reminder of Jesus' death and his resurrection and his presence through the Holy Spirit. So how can we take that as like, sacrament and then think, all right, week to week, I go, that's the place of worship. For many of us, right? And worship, I think, the community gathering to lift high the name of Jesus, to sing, to read scripture, to pray together, to have coffee and tea, that intentional gathering is a constant reminder of the death and resurrection of Jesus and the continuing presence through the Holy Spirit. And that's why I think it's so like, I hope I'm the last person to guilt people into coming to church. Like, hey, where were you? You weren't here. I genuinely believe that making it a habit is one of the most important things you can do. And certainly one of the most important things like a family can do together. And that's, I'm not saying like be at church on Sunday because like, that's the only way to be the church. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that it's the benefit of the discipline, saying I'm going to show up, might not feel it. It's like, well, I just didn't feel like going to church. Great. Get your butt there. You anyway. Probably need it most. Yeah. Like it's not about feeling it. And you might leave going, I didn't feel that. Like, like the music wasn't my favorite. I go, great, because it's not meant to be. It's not meant like it is meant to be a discipline. It's meant to be encouraging. Yes, absolutely. It's also meant to be challenging. But there's a reason why. Like it's been one of the central disciplines of the church since the very beginning. I go that way. It's
I love that. And I think that, my thought was, as you were talking, I was like, you know what? Like, you don't want it to be some just ritual that you do mindlessly, but also like, if it is that, maybe that's just try not to make that every week, but like if it's, once every few weeks, you're like, didn't really get anything out of that. It's like, well, that's okay. Come back.
I go to the dentist. I don't love it.
I don't get anything out of this.
I do not enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I know I need to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I hope that coming to church is not like going to the dentist every single Sunday.
No, like no drilling noises.
But I'm just saying like, I'm just saying like, it's okay if on occasion you're like, it doesn't feel like the most wonderful thing in your life right now. Like just to say that you don't need to feel it in order to go. You don't need to feel it.
Can I say I'm gonna get real vulnerable here?
Okay.
I'm on staff at the church, and sometimes I feel that way.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
that like there are sometimes when it's like Sunday's done. Oh, sigh of relief. Okay. You know? And then others where it's like, that was a joy. I am so grateful for this community and this place. And, yeah.
So now would you say that you can also notice though, is there like a felt experience when you do walk away, and go, man, I was not feeling it today, but I'm glad I went. Cause like I would articulate that, but
I've had that. Sometimes there were times where like, I was not feeling that today and I'm glad it's over, you know? I think about like even a couple weeks ago, I was running on like 3 hours of sleep and was a zombie, and my head was not in the game. And I walked away being like, yeah, that I don't feel good about anything right now. You know,
I just need to sleep.
I had a great nap that afternoon. Whereas like yesterday, like I walked away being like, that I feel so full right now. In the best of ways, you know?
Yeah. I would articulate that as well. Like, I think there are moments that I can look back on and go, yeah, I was not feeling it. Wasn't, waking up super excited to go, and then walked away feeling like there's no other place I needed to be. I could have been, like I had to be here. And like I can see that pattern all through my life. Growing up, going to church, ironically on occasion felt like work. Like growing up, kid of a pastor, and I go, I guess I gotta be there. And, I can certainly, I can point at every stage of my life. I can point at moments where I go, I didn't want to be there, didn't want to go, but that's the place that Jesus needed me to be. And usually for a reason I go, I wouldn't have expected that to happen. I wouldn't have been able to name this. Okay, so take it one step further away from, so we've got sacrament, we've got worship, which still feels like, hey, super churchy answer, right? Number one thing I wish people did every single day, and I say that because the number one thing I wish I did every day and I don't, is do essentially what the Psalms do, which is to write down the things I want to remember. So that, I mean, I don't write songs, but like, I mean, maybe somebody writes songs, maybe somebody writes poetry, maybe you journal, maybe you just get it on paper. I think we miss out on what God is doing, and I think we miss remembering simply because we don't choose to remember.
We're not reflecting enough. And like there's a practice that goes, obviously it's a very like widely mentioned practice, the practice of gratitude, right?
Sure.
Which is like on its surface level, Christian or not Christian, great thing to do, to just be grateful. But I think actually the way that a Christian could take that practice and make it a little bit more faith-centric would be to, just take, and the practice is usually like write 5 things you're grateful for. If we did that every day and centered it around grateful to God for, the 5 ways in which we are noticing God at work, the 5 ways in which we are remembering, whatever that looks like. I think that could be cool.
Okay. So here's my challenge too. And I was having a conversation with a group of guys about this. And one person said, I've changed my language around gratitude, and it's completely changed everything for me. And so I said, okay, tell me. This is great. The shift that he made was from saying, so typically when we say what you are grateful for, it sounds like I am grateful for. And, maybe at best we think like I'm thankful for. And so he said the flip that he made was thank you for. Right? And see what it does? Like it shifts the subject. Like it's less about I am thankful that, these things happened. Right? Like I'm still the key player. and it pushes it out to be like, no, God, thank you for this. Because what it can then sound like is, thank you for situation that, was painful, or a situation that taught me how to, or for a person who I never expected would, or for like it pushes it back on God and others, which is the place where gratitude should exist out there, like toward others. And it's changed the way I try to think about it now.
I love that.
I'm wrestling it out. So
that's cool.
Yeah, instead of I'm grateful for, I'm thankful for. Thank you, God, for this. That's different. I play it out with people too, right? Hey, I'm grateful that you did. Sounds a whole lot different than Justin, thank you for. Right? Like, it's just a very subtle but significant shift.
I like that.
Yeah. So I wish people wrote down, and that's why so much of Scripture is so rich, because these are people wrestling out how to remember what God did, generation after generation after generation. So write it down. And I also think we need to remember, ironically, no pun intended, we need to remember how to tell stories. I think we have lost some sense of like this collective storytelling as a community, where I remember thinking one day, like, man, we've got the greatest story on earth. Like the greatest story that's ever been told is written in these pages. And we stink at telling it.
We often, it's reductive, and we truncate the gospel. We don't tell obviously it's a large story, so there's a lot to tell. But no, I agree that we have not always shared this incredible story in a compelling way.
Right. So I think about some of my favorite authors over the years, and I go like, Tolkien's telling the story in this compelling way, right? C.S. Lewis tells the story in these beautifully compelling ways. I remember it hit me when I read I think it was Harry Potter for the first time, which when we were growing up, I remember like there were debates in churches about whether you could let your kid read Harry Potter or not. Like we won't go down that.
Those debates are still happening for different reasons.
Probably, I guess. But at any rate, I remember getting to the end of it, and spoiler alert if you haven't read the last one, I'm like, really, this is it? Like the best you could come up with after 7 books is that Harry dies and is resurrected? I'm like, that's the best we've got? And so I remember it hit me like that for the first time when I was a kid reading that book. I'm like, what are we doing? We just stink at telling the story. Y'all are just telling the stories better than we do. So I think we need to like recapture what it's like to tell the story of the gospel. That's really cool. What I haven't watched too much of The Chosen, but I think there are people out there who are trying to recapture communal, like what it means to be a community that tells story. And that does it well and in compelling ways for 2025.
That's good. So hopefully those are some good practices to consider, and as we talk about remembering and hopefully not forgetting what God has done. One other thought connected to this passage, and you alluded this a little bit in the sermon when Jesus rebukes the people present, and we admit that we don't know exactly. It seemed like it was a general statement, but you mentioned that the disciples would have felt it particularly hard. But these words of correction. And then you mentioned that sometimes our temptation is to rail against the evils of the world in the same way that Jesus, you wicked and you perverse generation, and so the question that came to my mind was, okay, I hear that and I agree with that. And yet we talk a lot as Christians about becoming like Jesus, and so where's the line? Where is the line? Because I mean, I don't feel great about like talking to people like that personally. That's a little bit of my personality as well. But Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where that language of becoming like Jesus, I want to say, falls apart a little bit.
Yeah. Because we're
Um,
not Jesus.
Right. At the same time, want to affirm like that. I believe that's the language of Scripture. I believe that's the language that Jesus uses. I believe that that's the language of discipleship, is about becoming more like Jesus and learning to do these things that Jesus did. Like, I definitely, I resonate with a lot of what Dallas Willard wrote on that language around discipleship. Ironically, not staged, because I didn't put these books up there. Willard's The Divine Conspiracy on discipleship is up on that bookshelf behind Justin. So,
Little plug.
Yeah. Anyways, I definitely think that language has merit and it has limitation. So this is probably where we see limitation of it. Now, I think the distinction that I hope to embody and that I hope for our church to embody is the difference between being judging and being judgmental. Right? So I think it was a while ago now. I think it was like 2013, 2012, 2014, somewhere around there. Barna, a research organization, did this study of Christians, self-proclaimed Christians, and found that their attitudes and actions were more closely aligned with the attitudes and actions of the Pharisees,
right,
than they were aligned with the attitudes and actions of Jesus. So majority. Close. I think it was like 51% or something. So I was like close, but still.
But not great.
That's not great. Closer aligned with attitudes and actions that are judgmental, to use that, hypocritical,
placing undue burden and expectation on people.
Unloving, insensitive, those types of things. And I definitely think that we can, as human beings, like we can tip into those categories. Here, I do think that what Jesus is not doing is he's not, like, as vague as this language is, this is Jesus teaching, and this is Jesus using language of the past to remind those who are present of the cycle that many of them, like historically, culturally, religiously, could identify with. Like, they're the ones still wrestling these things out.
You could even argue, I think, that at this moment in time, as Israel, occupied by Roman rule, they are maybe in a season of forgetfulness.
And of being called back.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what happens, right? Like, is Israel winds up in these moments, and it's through those hardships that they're kind of like reoriented back toward God. And Jesus is saying, like this is the moment. This is it. Don't forget. Don't let it pass you by. Like, here it is. So, he doesn't run around calling everybody wicked and perverse. So, I think that we in this, we are called to be like Jesus in that we are judging of the times, discerning, be aware, don't do what's right in your own eyes, necessarily all the time. And Christians are called, I think, to have this different lens with which we approach the entirety of the world. I said that we as Christians are naturally, we can tend to want to do that. And, so I just think it's worth saying that's not what Jesus is doing here.
Yeah.
Jesus is...
it's an insider conversation.
It is. So I was going to say, he's speaking to his disciples. He's speaking to the crowds, those have gathered. So now this would be closer to like a church gathering around and saying, hey, we need to remember. Yeah. Right? I might not use this exact language.
Right.
But
there could be an intensity at times. And I think that sometimes a harsh word is going to be a harsh word, but sometimes we need that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need that,
I do think that there is a place for rebuke.
Yeah.
right? What I wish Christians understood more, myself included, is we need to earn the right to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus had earned the right to be heard.
Yes.
Right? So he does what what only he can do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, like, that's the thing I wish that we wrestled with more is, you know, we want to stand and like judge what's going on. I think almost like as a way of distancing ourselves from it, and just like declaring like, whoa, what's going on over there? Don't love. I'm going to be over here. It's more comfortable for me to be over here. It's cleaner. Like if I can just completely separate myself, you know, maybe I can even blame what's going on for my own problems. Like why, like, man, like why is the church in North America in decline? Oh, that's secularism. Like, that's like, we like blame, like just kind of shipping blame. Right. And, so I think that's part of it. You know, maybe we don't want to be confronted with our own stuff. And so we find I think maybe this is the number one reason why we do it. If I can concern myself with other people's spirituality and where they have or are failing in my eyes, then I don't have to look introspectively. Like I don't need to allow Jesus to confront me. If like, oh, Jesus is using me to confront everybody else, that must mean that I've got it figured out. And I say that like a little bit tongue in cheek, but I think it's easier for me to point out a flaw in somebody else than for me to address that same flaw in myself.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my biggest, you know, challenges when I see someone, you know, yelling at passersby on a street corner, just because I'm like, I mean, you're not really helping anything, but also like, that's not really the job of a Christian, you know? Like we were talking about this before we pushed record, but just looking up this passage in 1 Corinthians where there's this super intense situation that we don't need to get into that you can read about. But Paul, his like takeaway at the very end is, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Yeah. Are you not to judge those inside? And like implication being, that there is judgment and discernment to happen within, you know, within those in the walls. But that, what business is it of mine? You know, like that's not my purview. Right. And it really wasn't Jesus's either. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I love about how Paul writes all of what he does in the New Testament is, for Paul, there's not a whole lot that has greater importance than the unity of the church. So when you look at all of his writings, it's, you know, where he gets harsh with the church in Galatia. So he calls them foolish. Says, you foolish Galatians, who's bewitched you?
I mean, foolish. That's a very, like, in their language, that's a very intense.
Sure, like, that's to write that down, like to send that is in a, like that in a letter is not. That's not a simple thing. Like, no. I mean, if I sent that to somebody by email, chances are they're going to be offended. If I started an email, like, you foolish person, who's bewitched you? Nobody's reading that and going, like, oh yeah, you know what? They're right. Yeah. I'm glad. Like, that's going to land. It's hard. Oftentimes what he is articulating is that the unity of the church matters typically more than, you know, topic A, B, or C, because of the way we are perceived by those outside the church. So, like, the simplest way I can put this is, like, if we can't even get along, who's going to want to look at that and go, oh, I want in? Yeah, that's right. And, you know, like, they got more mess than we do. Yeah. Like, what? So, in a certain way, like, I want people thinking, like, the church is not a perfect place. We're not, and certainly we should not just put on the face of being perfect. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, I love this heart for Paul. Listen, Paul doesn't, he's like, I don't care about what they're doing over there. Yeah. He's like, you guys get your heads screwed on straight.
We got our own problems here. Let's deal with them.
Yeah. So that the message of the gospel continues to go out from the kid. Like he's like, it's not just so that you look good. It's not just so that you feel good. It's not just that you can, get your reward in heaven.
Yeah.
It's so that the message of Jesus can continue to be proclaimed through the church. That for him is like the number one base priority, that the gospel, like the message of Jesus is being lived out in a way such that it spreads through the church. And he's like, we're going to sacrifice some things to make sure that one main thing happens, right? So unity for one. He's like, hey, we are going to choose to be united for the sake of the kingdom and for the sake of the gospel and the message of Jesus being spread, not because it's easy and comfortable and makes us feel great. We're going to have awkward conversations and hard conversations. But like Paul said, hey, adult men, you probably don't need to worry about getting circumcised. Like awkward conversations about how to get along inside of community. So for him, it's about understanding that why, to use like Simon Sinek's language of getting back to why.
Start with why, yeah.
For us, it needs to be the same. It needs like one priority needs to be that the message of Jesus is blowing up beyond these walls
and not hindered by our own stupidity. And that's what we see. I mean, we really do, and this is a hard word as we wrap up, but like it's a challenge that we need to face, that like there are eyes on Christians and churches, and they see the ways in which the church is functioning in let's say North America, just as an example, because it is still fairly predominant, and not always in good or healthy or helpful ways. And by that I just mean like sometimes our witness has been really bad. Just to be very crystal clear. And that doesn't help us to be able to talk with our friends about Christ.
So, okay, let's circle back all the way to 45 years anniversary, right? It's not 50, it's not 100, it's not like 45 is 45. It's longer than you and I have been alive. Super significant anniversary for our church, like planted 45 years ago. And we've talked around this idea. I think we're entering into a little bit of like a danger zone of we're not a church plant anymore. Like this is our third iteration of building. So planted here as a rental while this was a school, built a building, came back, bought this school when it was closed as a school, kind of renovated it. And God did some amazing things through all of that story. The danger that we're into is we're now far enough away from that original like church planting spirit of like we're going to plant a church in this part of Guelph because we believe that there are people and families here who need to know Jesus. And we're going to provide that Christian witness here. We're called to be rooted here and to be the church here and to see the message of Jesus spread throughout our city. And, we're reaching a time where we still have some folks who were around when the church was planted, but not many. And there will come a day when there are no more people around who were there when we were planted. And we run the risk of, I think, in these next years going, are we going to idolize the past in an unhealthy way where we say, we cannot do certain things because this is how it was started or why? Or are we going to elevate the beautiful mission and witness of those first planters and that early church and say, hey, here's the spirit and here's the mission. We're going to be crystal clear that the mission really hasn't changed, but our methods need to.
Yeah. And we were pretty clear on that when we were reworking our vision and mission statements, that like, hey, like we don't want to get caught up in methods because methods change as as generations come and go, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to think that through in a way that, I mean, obviously there's gonna be hard, I'm sure there'll be hard conversations because we become attached to certain ways of life and being, and I do too. We all do. And so, yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I just think we have a beautiful opportunity to honor the people who have come before us.
Yeah.
Right. And on whose shoulders we stand, and to say the best way we can honor what they've done and accomplished is by ensuring that it's here for another 45 years and another 45 after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, remember, tell the stories, write things down, come to church, take communion, do the things.
Love that.